Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Daniel Moore, who has recently been in the Gambia. If you have not watched part 1, I probably would recommend that you watch that first and then watch this video after. Thank you. We're hoping now in this part to just find out a little bit more about the work that's going on in the church in the Gambia, and also find out a bit more about what Daniel got up to in his short-term service, and maybe think about prayer points and the future for the church in the Gambia. So, Daniel, thanks for joining us again. Can you tell me just a little bit about what ministries or outreaches that the church in the Gambia has been involved in, please?
Well, I think the most vital ministry to the city of Brikama and the surrounding villages has been the evangelism. So the church is an example in evangelism. A few times a week, at least, members of the congregation are going out and telling people the good news. So we focus mainly around the area in the church, which is called Nyambai. It's a district of Brikama. And also we focus on a village called Kabakal, which is where I was staying, and also where the Gambia Partnership has a school. There are connections that go back to the church for a long time in that village. So on Wednesdays we'd try and reach the people in Brikama, and then on Fridays we'd reach the people in Kabakal.
And what does evangelism look like in the Gambia?
That's a really good question. Evangelism in the Gambia is quite different to something we'd be used to in the UK. In the Gambia, people are a lot more open, a lot more ready to chat, and a lot more eager to consider questions of spirituality and religion as well. And people are outside as well during the day. So we'd be walking from house to house, but rather than knocking on people's doors, people would already be outside on their porches or under their fruit trees, brewing tea, for example, and invite us to join them. And we'd join them and ask if we could share the good news of Jesus Christ with them. And they almost always, without exception, said yes and listened intelligently. And by the interaction, the conversations that we had as part of the evangelism, questions they were asking, we're considering the questions as well.
So you didn't get the polite no thank you and have to move on. They're quite interested in socialising and talking through. That's fantastic.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay. What other outreaches are there, or ministries that the church do there in the Gambia?
Right, yeah, so we do run a Bible study in Kabakal as well. There's no gospel preaching church very close to the village. So on Fridays we try and invite the whole village through evangelism and reminding the regular people to come and attend the Bible study God's Word together. And usually it's a member of the congregation or Pastor Conte who leads the Bible study. I had the privilege of leading it a couple of times. And we just consider what the Bible really says about Jesus, who he is, means of salvation, and particularly areas where there will be disagreement between various sectors of the church. So for example, most of the people that would attend the Bible study would be Roman Catholics. So we try and really nail down as to very firmly our colours to the mast as to what salvation is about, to whom we should pray, and where our works fit in to all of that.
Okay. And do they find that these people that attend the Bible studies would they ever come to Sunday worship service, or?
Well, we always invite them, and we've had some recent encouragements. It's been really good that I've been part of the village as well, in that I've been able to become friends with many of these people, and that personal connection always assists people in making the leap from attending something just down the road to travelling into a church. So that's been good. But to come back to other missions and outreaches that the church is involved in, the Conte family also run a school on their compound, which is an excellent witness to the predominantly Muslim neighbourhood around them. So the children will come, but most of the teachers will be Christian. And also, Pastor Conte runs a pastors' fellowship for pastors of all persuasions in the region around Brikama and the capital city Banjul. So pastors will all congregate together and listen to a reformed lecture, often by Ligonier Ministries, and then discuss it as well. So it's really good to have that connection with pastors and to encourage them to consider what the biblical gospel really is about.
And also that fellowship then that Pastor Conte can have with other pastors. Like he doesn't feel as isolated then, being able to have fellowship with them. Well, that's really good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. Well, then maybe we'll just move on to your time in the Gambia. How did you fit into this program? Did you get involved in other things? Did your time go quickly? Any bad experiences and any good experiences? Feel free to share.
Yeah, so I think I had quite a busy schedule. Most of my time was taken up with the schools in the mornings. So I actually split myself between, under the advice and guidance of Pastor Conte, I split myself between Life Impact School, which is a school in Brikama which Mrs. Conte is in charge of, and also Faith School, which is the Gambia Partnership School in Kabakal, where I was staying. So they're both primary schools, and I was teaching the higher grades, grade 5 and 6, in the primary schools. But that was in the mornings. In the afternoons, I'd either be busy with evangelism or meeting people around the village and in the church. So those were the two projects that really lasted the whole time.
Okay, and whenever you were teaching in the schools, what was it that you were teaching?
I was teaching maths and English.
Okay. And then in the afternoons, was it just going around and meeting people, trying to have conversations, as you were saying? Or was there any more organised work that happened for evangelism, in terms of inviting people to something? Or
Yeah, so we would usually, evangelism was the focus, so we'd try and witness to them first where they were, but then invite them to a meeting that we were having later on. So if we were evangelizing on Wednesdays or Saturdays, we'd invite them to the church service on Sunday, but then evangelism in Kabakal would be pointed towards the Bible study. So that we found that the most productive way, and that's the way the church had been doing it for some time.
okay.
I was really privileged to work beside Emmanuel Coron, who's a very dedicated member of the congregation there, and he has a real passion for evangelism. So I'd appreciate if people could pray for Emmanuel and pray for his work as he continues.
Well, hopefully people will take that on board and just pray for his work, and also the work of the church in general there, as they seek to reach out to the people in the Gambia. Did you get involved in any more kids' work? I think I'd seen pictures of you with kids.
Definitely, yeah. So I did that a lot. In fact, I was able to start a kids' club on Saturday evenings. So Christian children from the neighbourhood would come and would study the Bible together, learn about some of the Bible stories, and try and learn lessons from it as well. Then we'd be doing catechism, singing songs, doing craft, playing games together. So those were very popular, as Stephen McCollum and Peter Lockridge will attest to. Sometimes the children wouldn't want to go home after the program was finished. So those were really successful. And then I also taught Sunday school as well before the morning service.
Okay, and there you've just mentioned two fellow ministers from Scotland, Mr. McCollum and Mr. Lockridge, and what were they doing in the Gambia then?
That's a really good question. Yes, it was one of the highlights of my short-term service, where when I went originally to the Gambia, the congregation was not an official member, I suppose, of the Scottish Presbytery. It was under the care, and Pastor Conte was not an ordained pastor. He was acting there because, out of default position. Mm-hmm. But a real highlight of the experience was a constituted delegation, I suppose, from the Presbytery came over from Scotland. It was Stephen and Peter, as you mentioned, and they were able to constitute the congregation and ordain Pastor Conte and baptize lots of the members of the congregation who hadn't been baptized at all. I think we had 14 covenant children baptized in one day, so that was wonderful.
It's fantastic. Yeah, you've really been able to be a part of a special time in that church's history and life. It must have been a privilege for you.
It was a real privilege.
Yeah. Anything else then you'd like to share about your your time in the Gambia?
Well, there were lots of other small projects, like setting up a church library, which I was involved with, cataloguing some of the books and ordering some more, which was brilliant. It was a pleasure to be involved with, and also facilitating small businesses to be set up for some of the members of the congregation as well. And so those were some of the real success stories as well, some of the highlights as well, seeing new streams of income coming into some of the families in the church, and also the tithes coming in to support, make the congregation self-funding and self-sustaining. It was brilliant to hear.
And what sort of small businesses got set up?
Well, a member of the congregation runs a small shop not far away from the church at all, which sells just daily market produce, which is a real service to the community as well, because most people from that area of the city would have to make quite a long journey down into the market early in the morning to get things to eat.
Okay. Yeah.
And obviously the taxi fares and the time spent to do that is quite a burden on them. Okay. So it's a service to the community, and it's a service to the church and the family as well.
That's fantastic. What about the future then of the church in the Gambia? What are they looking towards? What are they hoping for?
Well, a great next stage would be to ordain some ruling elders in the congregation. Pastor Conte is quite isolated at the moment. He's doing a lot of the work himself in terms of preaching, pastoral visits, even evangelism. And it would be great for some of the men to be able to step up and assist him and support him and encourage him in that, and be able to give him a break as well, because I think it must be the most isolated. Sometimes Stornoway feels like a long way away from the other Scottish congregations, but Bracama is about 3,000 miles away. So that would be a real encouragement to him, and it would be a good step in developing the congregation next in a biblical direction. But also, the congregation currently does not have a building, and that's causing a lot of different problems.
Where do they meet at the minute then? What do they do for their worship? Well,
a family which is they're not members of the congregation as of yet, but they're Christians, and they very kindly allowed the congregation to use their veranda to meet. But the veranda just isn't big enough for the growing congregation, which is great news. But it does mean with the rainy season coming, and the storms, the flooding, that it's just not a suitable location anymore for the congregation to meet. So we're really looking for somewhere else. But ideally, we have a plot of land already purchased by the congregation, and if building work could continue on that, or commence on that, then that would be ideal. It would also mean that we could start having an evening service and meetings during the week as well, and it would give a much better witness to the community as well, to have a building. The church is quite hard to find at the moment, so a building would be a great next stage.
Well, that probably leads us in nicely into what can we as the wider church be praying for in relation to the future of the work in the Gambia? What do you think are the main points for prayer?
Well, the people are the most important. So I think if we could have more pastors and missionaries dedicated to the biblical gospel in the Gambia, that would be fantastic. I really get the impression that a lot of work could be done, but it's really limited by the manpower we have at the moment. So if more pastors could be raised up in reformed persuasions, that would be fantastic. But also for the members of existing reformed congregations in the Gambia to become more dedicated, more committed to the work of Christ, more committed to evangelism, more committed to church meetings. So if the church could be unified in that way, and all be pointing in the same direction, zealous for the advance of God's kingdom in the Gambia, those would be the two main things that would be great for prayer. But also, Sylvester Conte's family, it's difficult managing a school and 6 children, and all of the pastoral and ministry work that goes on. So pray for Pastor Sylvester and his wife, Jonette, and also pray that a solution would be found as to build a building and a manse and a place for them to stay.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing over these past 2 videos just a little bit about the Gambia. I think we're better informed now, and the work that's going on there. And we do want to be praying for the people in the Gambia. We are thankful for how God in His providence has started this work, and hopefully it's the start of many more churches in the future being set up in the Gambia.
Roger, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.